Well, and folks, I even told him before we went on the air that I was already going to give him the big intro so I wouldn't embarrass him by putting him over and making him listen to it. But our guest is Dave Meltzer. Dave, thank you for being here. It's like one of those news shows where people think there's going to be fireworks, but the guys actually like each other.
I know. It's funny. All week, people are going like, "You get in a big argument with him?" I go, "Probably not." I go, "I'm not going anywhere to argue with anybody, so no."
Well, and you know, for some reason, people think I'm so confrontational. I don't know why, but no. Well, I think I explained. Yeah, I mean, I've got papers to prove it, as Roughhouse Fargo used to say. Whatever. But I mentioned on the program last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it came up, for all the people who've wondered why I didn't debate other people or confront other people face to face, is I don't just speak to people on the show because it's my show that just piss me the fuck off and have no redeeming social value. But with you, we've known each other for a long time, and I've shared a lot of opinions that you have or have had and probably still have on wrestling. And so since I respect your goddamn pedigree, we can actually discuss shit without me screaming, "I want to gouge your fucking eyeballs out, boil you in oil, and sell the fat for soap." Just to get everybody in the proper frame of mind here. But a couple weeks ago, it got brought up. And Brian, it just appeared on Twitter out of nowhere, right? Just in clumps.
I don't know why. I can't explain it, but all of a sudden, within like a 2-day period, a ton of people started tweeting us the Chuck Taylor grenade spot clip.
And so I watched it, and of course, you know, my head burst into flames. An invisible hand grenade after who would have known that the Three Stooges multi-man, 8-man Three Stooges block finger poke spot would have been the most credible wrestling in the clip. But the guy does an invisible hand grenade. And it blows up and everybody takes a fucking bump. And all 400 people are just screaming madly. And so I roasted him on the show, but I was heavy on where I'm going with this. I was heavy on PWG, this fucking outlaw bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And I think I ticked you off because I've blistered the promotion as much as the spot. Because I'm not PWG.
Yeah. I'm not defending the spot. I mean, the thing is with me, it's like you're going all this. I'm going like, I've been going to PWG for a couple of years, and I never heard about the spot. I never saw the spot. It was guys that were there. I mean, some of the guys are still there, including Chuck Taylor, but it was years ago, and it's like every single promotion at one point or another did something completely ridiculous and stupid. But you can't just say, okay, from now on, I'm never going to care about this promotion. I mean, it's like Memphis did really crazy stuff, but and used to get shunned. You remember when you were a kid, everybody, the other promotion, Memphis, it's garbage wrestling, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but if you paid attention to it and watched it, it really wasn't. And PWG actually, as far as the live show goes, it's probably start to finish. It's a weird thing because the rules of wrestling, if I was doing a show, they break a lot of those rules, but because of their audience being so unique, it works. I mean, it's like the first time I went to a PWG show, I remember it was Speedball Mike Bailey was wrestling, and he was in the opening match, and it was his first time in the building, and he did like literally every single move in 20 minutes that he knew. And I was thinking and the people were going crazy, and he was getting over. And nobody knew who he was, and he was getting over. So I go, yeah, he's getting over. He goes, but he probably, when it was over, I go, he probably just killed the show because it's like, what can you do? This guy did everything in the book. And guess what? He didn't kill the show, and the show got better and better and better. And it was just like, wow. And the other thing that was so weird was, that was like a learning experience for me, is the Young Bucks were out there, and they were working complete heel. And the people, they were getting incredible heat. Fuck the Young Bucks. And I go, man, I mean, this is like real heat like I don't see in any other promotion. I mean, they were just ready to come.
Because their fans are better workers.
But then it's so funny. And then the show's over, and they're sitting there, and they're selling their merch, and there's this giant line of merch, and I go like, these people wanting to kill you, and they're all buying your merch, and it's just like it's so. It was like with the way we grew up, if the people were wanting to kill you, you snuck out the back door and you dodged the rocks, right? It's like,
but I guess
it's just a different world and a different place. And these people fly from all over the country to see these shows, and they really are. I've been to, I couldn't tell you how many shows I've been to, but every show but one I would call great, and the one I wouldn't call great, I would call very good. I mean, they're great shows. The guys work hard. It's a place to go. And I've seen some silly stuff, but not a lot of it. But I have seen some, like at Bola, on the last day of Bola, they do a 10-man tag match, and it's like tradition where they do a slow motion spot, and they do a thumb in the ass spot, and it's like it's completely ludicrous. And so the day of the first time I went to Bola, when they were going to do that, these people, like in the hotel lobby, are going like, "Oh, I can't wait because we're going to get to see the thumb in the ass and the slow mo spot." And it's like, I could care less about the thumb in the ass and the slow mo spot, but the people were waiting all year for this spot. So it's like, okay, if they're waiting all year for it, that's fine.
It's an annual tradition that they do slow motion and thumb in the ass spots at this particular show, and then they book a match that can do that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they do it, and the one that the last year. They had Jushin Liger was in the match, and the whole thing was how none of the other wrestlers wanted Jushin Liger to do the spot because he's Jushin Liger and he shouldn't lower himself to do it, and he kept wanting to do it until finally, at the big pop at the end, he finally did it because they couldn't stop him from doing it. It's completely preposterous, but it worked that night, and then it's like, and the rest of the show was phenomenal.
But here's the problem I got. You can't keep shit like this a secret anymore. If they were just doing it for their people in their building, and for the people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like, then that might be one thing. I wouldn't want to be involved in it, but it would be contained. But now with the internet, people see this all over the fucking world.
Yeah, but they see all the stupidity all over the world constantly. There's so much stupidity in wrestling, and they're hardly a major offender. I'm not saying, and look at almost any week I can watch stuff on other shows that's just completely stupid too. And it's like, But
is there a difference?
I'm not even saying it's good. It's just what it's evolved into.
Isn't there a difference between stupid and stupid phony stupid? Do they have to have invisible choke slams and would it be better? Certainly it would be better, but I'm asking you, would it be better if they actually, instead of the inmates running the asylum out there and everybody just being allowed to do every fucking thing they possibly could do? And then putting in the foolishness of it, so they're wrecking their bodies and still reinforcing on the same show that everything they're doing is phony. And yes, for that small group of people, they like to work with them. They're part of the show. I think that may be part of the appeal from what it sounds like. But wouldn't, if some promoter or booker or somebody that was smarter than the guys in the ring would put a show together and teach them how to respect the business a little bit better and potentially not do these silly things just to get on viral video or flip people around with their dicks.
They actually don't even want their stuff on viral video. They hate when that stuff happens. Because the whole thing is that they're like one of the last promotions that makes a lot of their income selling the DVDs. So they don't want this stuff out like that, but it does. It's impossible to contain it, and we all know that, and that's just the way it goes. But
if you want to be taken seriously as a place where the best talent, and regardless of the style, so if the style now is do everything in every match that everybody,
well, no, it's not. It's not. That's the funny thing. It's every match is different, but there are guys, and there absolutely are guys who will do a match where it's like do everything that they can, and that stuff does get over in that building without a doubt. But it's not one match after another. It's like watching a show where every match is different, or generally the matches are different. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 different styles on any show, and they're all done differently. I mean, when Hero was there, he was doing like a real slow, everything meant something type of match, and it got over great. And there was a lot of matches with really good psychology. There was a lot, it's
okay. Well, then let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase it. If their philosophy is get the best talent and not put any restrictions on them to do what they can do and get over with the people through their talents without, being given bad booking or bad gimmicks or whatever by the big companies, why do they want the goofy shit that makes the stuff that the guys are really good at this look bad and look fake too on the same show?
It's funny. It's a unique nature of the fan base, and it's really hard to explain because sometimes I was at there was a show WrestleMania weekend where they had a 10-man tag, and it was actually and the crowd went freaking crazy for it, and the guys were fantastic in the match in what they did, but I thought, to me, it was show off wrestling, okay? But I mean, it was good and it got over with the crowd. But in the middle of the match, they stopped and they all did their dance number, and it was just like, oh my God, they're doing a freaking dance number. And the first time I saw, but the crowd went freaking nuts for it. So it's like, and I remember somebody went up to me and just goes like, because all these people are going like, oh, that's a 5-star match, and it's like, it's not to me. If it is to you, fine. It's not to me. And it's not downgrading it because I thought overall it may have been the best match I saw over WrestleMania weekend if you subtract the dance spot, but it was certainly one of the best matches over the weekend.
Then shouldn't there be somebody, like I said, smarter than them, like the promoter or the booker, to say, you guys are going to fuck yourselves up to be taken seriously. You can have a good match. Don't do this dance bullshit.
But it worked for the crowd. Who am I to say? Like everyone loved Dusty Rhodes used to do dance stuff in the middle of the match, and and it worked. And PN News did it, and it didn't work. And it's like, if it works, it works. If it had died there, I would just go in there and go, I hope you all saw that it died. But it's like, it didn't die. So am I going to go after the match and go to someone? You did something that I don't like, but goddamn, every single person in the crowd except for me liked it, or 90% of the crowd liked it. So what the hell? It's all in fun, and it's not.
What has happened to this?
So it's the audience. You're working for your audience, and it's a unique audience, and this is just they want to be in on it, and they want to be entertained, and in their minds, that's part of the entertainment. If they go and do that because it's something new and different, and they like it. I mean, it's just a different.
What has happened to this generation of professional wrestlers? That if the promoters will let them, and whoever the bookers are will actually let them, what has happened to the generation of wrestlers that will actually do this shit on purpose in front of people? Whether it's
they're trying to get over with the crowd, with what the crowd wants, and if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it a second time. That's the whole thing. It's like, look, I mean, they're not.
I promise you, they wouldn't get a chance to do it a second time if they were working for me or anybody else I've ever in the wrestling business.
I believe me, I understand where you're coming from because, my natural inclinations are the same thing. As far as like when when you're in the building and you see if it works, like to me, if it works, it works. And it's not killing the business because the business is a weird business right now that's on the underground level is actually getting stronger because of these guys. On the national level, it's not getting stronger, but that's not because of these guys. That's because of what's going on the with the promotions that are on television. And
I gotta think that a lot of it is that when people that haven't seen wrestling see shit like that on the internet because people send it around, and they go, "Oh, I remember when this shit you could actually take half seriously and click and don't." I wonder.
Yeah, but that's on. But that's on the national promotion. Those people the casual people are going to watch the television. They're not searching around for internet gifs of pro wrestling. They're watching football or something else. But that's the casual audience. The super hardcore fan base is actually stronger than it's ever been and willing to spend more money than it ever has before. Because they think that they're in on the act and they think that they're a big part of the show and they're, whatever it is. And it's like, that's just what, but like as far as
I can't understand a fucking guy getting in this business and wrecking his body and doing the things you have to do and then making it all look silly just because he can't get over any other way, and fucking making everybody that really is a talent and actually has the ability to get over look bad, and that those guys don't turn around and kick the other guys' asses.
Well,
because there was a time when if you'd have done an invisible hand grenade or a hands-free choke slam,
a lot of promotions wouldn't like that.
Dick.
I would say
no, the locker room would have beaten your fucking brains out as soon as you got through the door.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And when have we lost that amount of respect?
That dates back,
and do this.
That dates back 20 years. But how much ridiculous stupidity? We had Paul Bearer buried alive, and then he came back from the dead, and we had Undertaker come back from the dead time after time, and Undertaker was buried alive 2 or 3 times. And it's just like, once you do that, it's kind of like the people are going like, okay, it's all what it is. And the ones who stay, that's their mentality of pro wrestling. It's like, if the mentality of pro wrestling was to be taken completely serious, those people were lost a long time ago, and they were lost. And then you and I both know that. But it's like, now you've got an audience, an underground audience, that's like this. They've grown up with this version of wrestling, and now they like it too. They're whatever it is that turns them on. That's what these guys are trying to learn to do and make their names with.
There ain't enough of these people, as even Ring of Honor found, because Ring of Honor is a lot more serious than the
Ring of Honor is more serious than most, and they wouldn't allow. Yeah, but
and there still weren't enough people, as we found out, and a lot of it is because there's nobody. Every time I go to a non-wrestling appearance, comic book convention or whatever, 90% of the conversation, if not more, is we used to love wrestling. We don't watch it anymore because it's too phony or hokey or whatever.
I know that, but that's on the people who have television. That's not on the small independent promotions are not the people that are causing any of this. That's the people who have the television. And the people who have the television decided, that this is the direction they want to go. And, even when it's like, and it's not, and now it's all WWE because Ring of Honor has television and New Japan has television and Impact has television, but they're not watched by enough people to where it really makes a difference. It's WWE. And it's like, and WWE, they have their ups and their downs, and they're mixed up in the sense that sometimes they try to be serious, and then sometimes they try not to be, and they kind of get.
Which is the same thing. I have the problem with them. They have guys that have great matches, whether it be Undertaker at WrestleMania or whatever.
There's a lot of great matches in WWE, but then there's a lot of terribly scripted interviews on WWE.
The main events that you potentially see on Raw that are actually great matches, or the big pay-per-view main event matches. Great performances are either followed by or preceded by or whatever some hokey ass horseshit that nobody can believe, which is why is what I don't understand about it, because once again, that devalues what the guys go out there and do, that perform at a high level when you're doing hokey bad vaudeville horseshit on your program, regardless whether it's WWE or anybody else. But I have to draw the line at blatantly. In front of people. That's like a used car salesman coming out and telling his audience, by the way, we're going to fuck you guys because all these cars are shit, and then trying to do it anyway. I cringe at a lot. The thing that I can't, that bothers me the most on WWE, and this is the one that really does, because, one of the things with like my friends that when we'll talk about the wrestling, they'll go like, the matches are as good as ever, maybe better. And the guys themselves, they work hard. They're in great shape and all that. But the interviews suck. And it's just like, compared to what we saw growing up, it's like, I'm not going to say that that the wrestlers are any worse now or better. Everything's different for style. But I will say that the interviews are way, way worse than the interviews I grew up with. And the reason is because, if you broke into the business in 1984 and they handed you a script and you couldn't think on your feet, you weren't allowed to think on your feet. I remember I know what would have happened to your career. Superstar Graham used to tell me, and he was a very successful wrestler in the 70s. And he was just like, I could never get over today. I could never get over because they would hand me a script. And how did he get over? He got over 100% on his talking, 70% on his talking, 30% on his body. But I was about to say look, but certainly not work. Sure.
Yeah, but it's like so many. There's a few of the guys who can pull off the scripted promos pretty well, And there's a few of the guys that have the, whatever the word is, they John Cena or Jericho or whatever, who are kind of like, the people have enough confidence in them. It's like, if you go off script, we're not going to murder you. You can go off script. And they do, and they're very good at it. But most of the guys are out there doing the script, and they're, and they're using words that they wouldn't use within their character, and they're saying things that you just listen, and it's just a major turnoff. But it's like, that's the stuff to me that when I hear people go like, I don't watch wrestling anymore. I mean, that's what it is. The one I always hear is just like, how can you, those promos are just so cringing. And it's like, so that's probably turning more people off than the stuff, the underground stuff. It's got its.
Let me say something before we leave and go back. Let me say something about the promos. Okay. Here's another problem. Then obviously it's complete gaga to give somebody a script and tell them to read it word for word instead of put it in your own words. Here's your story, tell it, whatever the fuck. But
these guys don't even know their story. That's the crime of the whole thing.
A lot of fucking guys need to learn to, they ought to make cell phones illegal in the locker room. So everybody had to tell stories again. So you actually had to get up and perform in front of your peers to keep people's attention, or elsewise they'd tell you to sit down and shut up and stay off the fucking phones and everything and have a personality. And the thing is, if somebody gives you something that's written down and you tell that story, but you tell it better in your own words and make it good, then they shouldn't yell at you. They might, but then fuck them. But if you don't knock it out of the park, you're fucked.
The problem is that you've got to use certain verbiage that is an immediate turn-off verbiage, and you have to use it. And some of the guys are so good they can get away with using that verbiage, and they're still good. But most of them aren't, and that's a big problem. And it's this stilted wording that you listen to these guys, and the guys in their own minds, you can just go like, you would go like, this character should never.
Do they actually stand there and say this exactly that way?
Well, they give them a script, and I mean,
they just give them well, fuck it. I'm going out there in front of 10,000 people, I believe I said this to a guy that I actually can't speak about now because he's restrained me. But I said, motherfucker, I'm going out there in front of 10,000 fucking people, and they're looking at me and they're listening to what I'm saying and looking at what I'm doing, not fucking whoever told me wrote this shit or told me what to do or whatever. So I'm going to do it where it fucking gets over to the best of my ability out there instead of for you.
Well, I mean, that's what, there's 3 or 4 of the guys there that are allowed to do that. And heavens to Betsy, those are the guys that usually have the best promos and probably connect to the crowd the best. And I would think that might not be a coincidence, but apparently it is. And I mean, here's another one. Is like this was like a real eye opener. A couple of years ago, they did a thing. They do this every year. It was a video game conference, and Stone Cold was hosting it. And 2 of the guys there were Roman Reigns and Cesaro, and they're just going back and forth, impromptu, cutting promos on each other. And Roman Reigns has a really quick wit, and he did really well. And Cesaro did even better. And yet, when I watch these guys cut promos on WWE television, I think they suck. And it's just like, and so now I know that it's not like, and people will go, oh my God, Roman Reigns, he can't cut a promo. So I saw him. So you can't tell me he can't, because I know he can. And Cesaro, I know even better. This guy's great.
Oh, Claudio's fantastic.
Right, but they're put in a position where they're reciting things with writers that don't understand their character, clearly in the case of Roman Reigns, because and may even be Vince, because they have him saying stuff that he absolutely shouldn't be saying. And Claudio, I mean, Claudio is just, I don't even know the character he's trying to play. But the point being is that a lot of these guys, I mean, maybe, there's going to be some that will, here's the thing, some will fail. Not everybody in the old days. I remember watching old, interviews a couple years ago, and there were guys that were bad on interviews. Now, the guys who were good on interviews blow everything away today practically, but there were some guys who were bad. So some of the guys now, left to their own devices, would be bad on interviews. But most of them would be much better than they are, and some of them would be shocking people with how good that they are, but they're not allowed to be, and it's really kind of sad.
Well, there you have it.
Can I ask a question, Jim?
I was about to say, well, yeah, and I was going to go to another friend of Dave's, but you go first.
The idea, Dave, that the guys do certain things like the dance spots or whatever because they get over in that room. I understand that, but do you think that there's any point where just because something gets over to a specific audience, that it may not necessarily be a good thing. And, you know, for me, my example,
it's a good thing is really weird because there's so much, you know, it's like in my mentality of wrestling, you know, but again, you have to look at what works, and you know, you're right. There are absolutely things that are going to get over an ironic way to a certain audience that would not get over to a larger audience. And perhaps if they were in front of a larger audience, they wouldn't do it. Perhaps they would do it, and it would work, and we would be wrong. I mean, it's hard to say.
I bet it would get a pop if I just pulled my pants down and took a shit in the middle of the ring. But as a promoter, do I want somebody doing that on my show?
Well, I would hope not, but well, I know it. Well, you know what?
Okay,
I would. But so here's the thing. If you
hand grenade spot.
Okay, well, hey, I didn't like the hand grenade spot either. You know, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know about it. That's the whole thing. When I was looking at it, it's like, why? I mean, it's like I've been going. Nobody has ever once at any show I've been to ever brought up the hand grenade spot. So it makes me feel that, in fact, in that audience, it's something that they probably don't want to remember because. Believe me, when I go there, people go, "Oh my God, did you see when Kevin Steen and El Generico did this match, which was even before that?" And it's like that was like the greatest match in the history of this building. And you know, remember when Bryan Danielson used to work?
Now we know where their heads at, but now I don't want to start.
So I mean, the point is that you know. I mean, I don't know if that spot worked because the first time I saw it was like a couple of days ago, just like you guys, or a week ago. But the point is like no one remembers it, and I mean, I guess that was my point was that like I didn't even know of the spot, and nobody talks about the spot, and it's years later, and the promotion is a really great promotion to go to live, and perhaps that was a big mistake.
It's one example, but I don't want to beat that to death because there's something else that we can beat to death.
Okay.
We could either beat to death the guy.
I know where this one's going.
Well, we could either beat to death the guy that throws people around with his dick, or we could beat to death the guy that wrestles grade school girls and blow-up dolls. Because once again.
Okay, the grade school girl thing. Okay, first of all, that was another culture, and it was also and again that was 6 years ago, and it's like. And it's a different culture, and it was.
I was a serial murderer, but I haven't killed anybody in 8 years.
Yeah, so, again, their culture is a very different culture than our culture, and I mean, there is stuff. Believe me, when I see like DDT is a very interesting promotion, and again, if you're watching it from an American perspective. I mean, it is like the wackiest, most ridiculous thing in the world. But I know Americans who love it. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm thinking. For these native talents, it's one of the most popular companies in Japan. I mean, it's an underground company, and the weird thing is, and this one actually would probably frustrate you the most, is that their undercards are, you know, so off the wall crazy, but they've got guys on top that are exceptional wrestlers that nobody knows about, and probably it doesn't help their case being on the shows, but these are exceptional guys, and the crowd goes there for the comedy, and they go there for the great wrestling both, and it mixes, and it's just the product mix that they have, and they're alive, and they're an okay promotion. I mean,
hold on, but yeah. Then they are native, as you said, to the blah blah blah. Kenny Omega's a North American; he's one of them Canadian fellas.
Yeah.
But he went over at some point, such as, for example, when the Boogeyman was putting worms in people's mouths. I had made the comment that I've never needed a payoff so bad that I would let somebody dump worms in my mouth. And that would have been the case had I been there at the time of the Boogeyman's worm rampage. And the same thing, if I was a legitimate or thought of myself as a legitimate professional wrestler and somebody booked me to work with a fucking 9-year-old girl or a blow-up doll in a competitive match, and I didn't say, fuck you, then I should be disqualified from being in the serious fucking wrestling business. I'm sorry, but I agree with you that Omega's a good athlete. He has a good look. I think he's got the goofy facial expressions, and he used to remind me a lot of the
They're not as bad as they were years ago.
Not as bad as they used to be, but regardless, he disqualified himself in anybody's mind that ever had an ounce of respect for the wrestling business.
Okay, but think about this. Okay, all right. I'll just give you some examples.
Why would you do that?
Okay. 20 plus years, roughly 20 years ago.
He wants to be a video game character. He's another one of these video game guys. He wants to be a video game character or something. He apparently done.
Okay. But 20 years ago, they did that horrible Secrets of Pro Wrestling special, right? You were working for WWE at the time. And Harley Race is in that show. And I'm like going like, what the fuck is Harley Race doing in this show? Now, does that invalidate every single thing that Harley Race did in the wrestling business? It's like, no, he did all that stuff. But it's like, just Delirious just a week or two ago did an I Quit match where the finish of the match is a guy put a gun to his head.
What?
And at that point he said, I quit. And it's like, does that mean that I cannot now watch tonight's Ring of Honor pay-per-view because I know that the guy who booked it did an angle on a small-time indie show where a guy put a gun to his head in an I Quit match to come up with a finish?
I like Delirious, and it certainly wouldn't help my enjoyment. I hate to hear that.
But it's like there's so much of that. I think that again. I think one of the eternal sad truths of pro wrestling is, as compared to many other forms of entertainment, is I think that in many cases its most what's the word I'm looking for? Its most loyal fan base is its most loyal because they've endured so much crap that their skins are so thick that they can overlook almost anything because they have to. Because if they can't, they'd be long gone. And unfortunately, but that
most of them are.
And I know most of them are. I know. I wonder if pro wrestling is the one entity in this country where if you go with like basketball, if you ask like basketball fans, like, do you watch basketball? Most of them would say yes. If you watch people who at one point in their lives were pro wrestling fans, do you watch pro wrestling? I think a lot more would say no than yes. And they actually had a survey in Canada, which actually, by the way, proved that to be true, at least in Canada, that in fact, unlike any other sport, more professional wrestling fans will not watch professional wrestling now. Then it's more than 50% of them will not watch professional wrestling now. So yeah, these guys have, but again, what runs them off is what's on television. It's not what happens in a little building in front of 400 people. And so it's like,
but
we need to put the blame on the people that are at the top. It's a disease that's spreading because the more that happens in these little 400-seat places and more the people go, oh, that's cute, the more these guys think it's okay to do, and then the more they spread it around and put it on the internet. And I think even worse than wrestling actually being extinct, which is what the big companies may do to it, would be wrestling existing as a Saturday Night Live sketch where nobody really ever fucking. But it's really not that. That's what's the weird. That's what the weird part is. It really is a dichotomy in the sense that they do these things that are really silly, yet at the same time, those same fans appreciate a good match as much as anyone ever has. And we are getting, incredible wrestling matches. Why do you think people do silly things when every time people see, oh, gosh, Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar just did an angle and got over like $1 million? Right, it did really well. Yeah, that's what captures people's attention and draws money on pay-per-view and mainstream, et cetera, et cetera. So why are the independent guys still going out and trying to stick their thumb in everybody's ass? Well, they're really, that's like more of an exception than the rule, but it does happen. But it's the same thing as far as like, again, why on 205 Live? Okay, when the Cruiserweight Classic went in there and they did a straight wrestling as sport show with a sports presentation with Mauro Ranallo and Bryan Danielson as announcers trying to call it like that, and they were extremely successful. Everyone loved it, and they were the highest rated show except for pay-per-views on the WWE network. So then when it's over and the tournament's over, we're going to turn it into what every other show is with these silly angles and everything like that. And now nobody watches it. So now I can take that and go, okay, what have I learned from what I just said? What I've learned is perhaps what you like and what you would probably enjoy might be more popular, but they're so set in their ways that even when their own statistics will tell them, it's like, but that's not wrestling, and people will not watch this because it doesn't have the angles, because that's what draws people to wrestling. And it's like, well, what if the facts say different? And I think that's the thing. Is like, no one, it's like, listen to your own audience. But sometimes when you have a cult audience, they want cult weird things. And we never got to the bottom of the question of, would you as a professional wrestler say, no, I'm not going to fucking work with that blow up doll? Or unless you were Buddy Landell trying to get fired from the territory, would you not work with the Invisible Man? Yeah, well, it's a different country, and it's hard for me to
in Germany, they like to get their balls nailed to a step stool. They love all kinds of things in Germany. I'm not sure we want to do in a wrestling ring.
Yeah, I know. Look, I'm not saying, but I don't like. I'm not going to go in there and go because a guy did something in a comedy promotion 6 years ago that now that he's in a serious promotion and it's the number 2 promotion in the world that. He's not good and he's not talented. But if I'm
running the serious promotion, I would say, fuck this fucking guy. He jacked around on somebody else. He'll jack around on me.
But they booked the match. He didn't book the match. He just performed it real well. He was given something to do, and he either could have he could have gone in there and been really bad and sucked at it, or he actually made it as good as possible to the point that people still talk about it and are fascinated by it, years later. Now, should he have done it? Again, but that's a different culture.
Making it good is actually worse. If you have a match with a 9-year-old girl with a blow-up doll, that means that anybody can do this.
No, that's the thing. I know what you're saying. But the reality is that not anyone can do it. But you're right. I know what you're saying in the sense of if a 9-year-old girl can go in there and take all of his moves and get up, then my God, how devastating is it really? But
if he can make it look good, like he's killing that little girl.
I know. And
everybody, all these guys do must be phony as fucking a football bat.
I think.
And once again, Ole wanted to put a pumpkin on my head, and I said, "No, you're not going to put a pumpkin on my head." I can't imagine a fucking wrestler being forced to, much less voluntarily, doing phony bullshit like that and demeaning and wiping your feet with the fucking business. But
it wasn't demeaning their business there. Now, granted, again, and it's not. I mean, I'm not, and I don't.
Well, then let them get the local guys to do. I don't.
I mean, it's a different business, and the fan base the fan base is going like a movie fan. It's like they know that stuff in the movie isn't real, but they enjoy the movie. I mean, that's what the fan base is going. And sometimes, movies take weird twists and turns too. It's just what it is. I mean, if everyone went and believed, and now you're doing something, you're killing their belief, and it does to an extent to some people, but evidently not to enough. Because if the business of those companies went down, then they paid the price. But if they didn't go down, then it didn't kill them.
We need to have Craig A. Williams script write all of Kenny Omega's matches, because that would be the perfect marriage of Hollywood and wrestling. Brian, I know you're dying to jump in here somewhere.
Listening to what you guys are saying, obviously, as has been pointed out, you're talking about something in Japan, something different culturally, not to defend it or to take away from it, but just that was the facts just put out there. But going back to my initial question about sometimes if something gets over to a portion of the audience, it may not be a good thing. I'm 37 years old.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that, by the way.
I'm 37 years old. So, I mean, it's still my era of guys working. It's not like I'm one of these guys like, oh, in my day, it used to be this and that. I like old stuff, but this is still.
Hey, look, the average audience that's watching on TV is closer to my and Jim's age now.
Right.
Which is a real scary thing, by the way.
When my non-wrestling friends started sending me, when it first happened, the Joey Ryan clip, I've never been more embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. And I've put up with all sorts of shit, and I love Memphis, but that was the most embarrassing thing. And the fact that it's still happening, and I understand to a portion of an audience that is what they want to see, but it goes back.
I want to tell you something. That Joey Ryan thing is really interesting to me because I see it at the shows, because Joey Ryan works shows here that I go to. So it's a really weird thing, because when I first saw the clip, obviously I didn't like it, but I grew within a couple of days to actually go, you know what? It's like, this is weird because so many people are talking about it. It's probably going to be good for his business personally, and it was. So it became his signature thing. And
there's a question: should what's good for this one guy's business, because he's a marginal talent and can't get over any other way, be allowed to happen at the expense of what's bad for My business is a promoter. Everybody else's business is a wrestler.
I'm not sure it is. I got to tell you the story about Joey Ryan because it's a really weird story. Okay, because it involves my family. Okay, like my son's not a wrestling fan at all, but there was a show. I was in. It was November, and I was in New York for the Weidman. Well, it wasn't the Weidman fight. It was the Madison Square Garden show. Conor McGregor and Eddie Alvarez. So Weidman fought on the undercard. So the Friday, so I'm in New York on a Friday, and he's going to a show because he had a reason he wanted to go to see a show. I mean, partially because Cody Rhodes is on the show. Actually, that's probably the main reason. And Joey Ryan, he may have wrestled Cody Rhodes, may not have wrestled Cody Rhodes, I'm not sure. But Joey Ryan was definitely on the show. So Friday night, I go like, what'd you think of it? And he just goes, there was a guy on the show. And I go, before he even said it, I go, oh my God. I sent him to a show that Joey Ryan's on. I didn't even think about it. I probably should have. And it was just like, and he thought that it was kind of weird. Now, having said that, the next time he went to a show, which was the Cow Palace show, and he didn't go to see Joey Ryan, and he brought a lot of his friends, and they all wanted to see the same reason that show was successful. There was some weird thing that took over the city, or to a small degree, with the idea of wrestling at the Cow Palace to older people was this mythical thing that doesn't exist anymore. And there's a show at the Cow Palace, and it's kind of like, I remember my son just goes, there's wrestling at the Cow Palace. It's got to be big, right? And I go, well, not necessarily. but the point is that they all wanted to go. Now, Joey Ryan did wrestle Cody Rhodes there because I was at that show, and I was with all those kids. And they're doing the match, and the very first spot of the match is Cody Rhodes kicks him in the groin like Arena Mexico, right? And then he sells it like it's Anderson Silva just got his leg broken by Chris Weidman. And he's just hobbling on there with one leg. And, it's just like, I hadn't seen the spot. It's like, well, it's a different spot. But the point is like, they're all there, and Joey Ryan's in the ring, and everyone in the building knows that this spot that you guys don't like, and that, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it either. They all know the spot is coming. It has to come because Joey Ryan's there. And when it comes, they go crazy for it. And my son, who didn't like it the first time, while he's in the ring, goes, you're not going to believe what's going to happen here. You're not going to believe what's going to happen here. And when it happened, it was like they loved it just because it was weird. And that was the only thing. It's weird, and it got over for being weird. It didn't hurt the business. Joey Ryan comes up here all the time. The crowds are not they're not going down because people see that spot. And after you see it the first time, for whatever
Dave, here's
weird
the problem.
reason, they like it. If they didn't like it, I would say. If they didn't like it, I would be the first one to go, this spot is fucking stupid. But because they do.
When Joey Ryan is on a show, there is probably negligible difference between the number of people that are there, whether he was on it and whether he wasn't on it, just because it's the number of people that are going to go to see an independent wrestling show, pretty much. But
but
something got to pop with people doesn't mean it should be allowed to happen, because that takes the whole tone of your promotion. Maybe they didn't think they were going to come back.
Unfortunately, what happens when Joey Ryan is on the show is every fan there wants to see that spot. I don't say every, because I'm sure there's plenty that don't. But enough to where that people are sitting and freaking anticipating this spot, whether it's good or bad. And it's the same thing historically there have been so many spots. And granted, this is extreme.
My answer to that, first of all, would be don't book Joey Ryan, and there you've solved a lot of problems right there.
Well, that's if you don't want that spot on the show and you don't want people anticipating that spot, don't book Joey Ryan. But if you book Joey Ryan, pretty much you don't do that spot, people are going to go home. Not everyone, but a lot of people are going to go home going like, why didn't you do that spot? That's what he's here for. So it's like, whether that's good or bad, that's what, and maybe it's going to, it's not going to hamper him. I mean, in the sense of, if he was someone who was going to go to the big time, like WWE, and then went there and they didn't want that spot, but he's not going there. He's going to be an independent wrestler, and the same thing even at Lucha Underground. If I'm running Lucha Underground, I will say this: if I'm running Lucha Underground, I've got a television show. I would not want Joey Ryan doing that spot on television. I mean, to me, because it would go against what I would want my television to be. But if you're booking Joey Ryan,
but wait a minute, they have teleportation and people that come back from.
Oh no, I know. That's the least. That's the least of their problems. Hey, look, that's the least of their problems, and Lucha Underground, it pains me, Lucha Underground, because there's the potential of Lucha Libre with the great workers they have in Mexico right now in this country is very big. And the talent on Lucha Underground, some of it is absolutely incredible. And they are strangled by their booking because they've got bookers who, that have no clue. And I mean no clue, that don't understand that people, when they want to watch a wrestling soap opera, really don't, they want to be able to believe to a certain degree, and killing off characters and, all of the crazy stuff that they do. It's like, it's cool to a degree, but it's like, and making the first women's world champion of men and all that, which, hurt their ratings for a while, although they've rebounded from it since, but the whole thing is like, they have limited their upside potential based on the fact that they think that we're not a wrestling show and we're doing something different. If they were just a crappy indie group that had no talent and they were doing any of the stuff, it'd be like, okay, do whatever you want, but you actually have potential and you're strangling your potential. So that Lucha Underground kind of bothers me because of that.
Let me ask you a question then, because to me it's no different between they do teleportation and bringing people back from the dead and other preposterous shit, and the other guy does the preposterous shit of flipping a guy with his dick, which is impossible and can't happen either. And the other guy does the.
Well, it's not. To me, a lot of moves in wrestling.
But no, seriously, yes. But you can't make a case at all. There's no shoot dick flip.
No, there's not. There's not. But the point is like for whatever reason, he's got the spot over, and people want to see the spot. It's because people want to see silly. Now, if you build a whole company around silly, does it work? Probably not. You can't do a whole show of it, but as far as like a 1 second part of a show, if it didn't get over, that's the whole thing. It gets over. People do anticipate that spot. I was there. I've seen it more than once.
But you just said that silly and stupid and phony was limiting Lucha Underground because people wanted to half-ass follow it. And I say that these silly, phony spots.
Well, that's one second of a show as opposed to the overriding. If the entire show was filled with matches with those type of spots, I think that would be terrible. But the point is, for 1 second of a show that people want to see and they want to laugh.
If you have a Broadway play, if you have a dramatic Broadway play that breaks into a 2 minutes of one-liners from fucking Henny Youngman's playbook, it would take you out of it too. The whole thing's the same.
I've been to enough shows, and I know the mood of people when it's not working and when it's going to keep people from coming back. And believe me, there's a good chance in another era probably wouldn't work. But it's this time in this place with people who know who he is, and they do know who he is. It's 1 second of a show that they want to see. God knows why. I mean, but there's a lot of stuff over the years that's like completely preposterous that people do that gets over, and God knows why. But when you do it enough, stuff that like if you do it enough, people start to think that it's cool, and when they think it's cool, it's not a negative on the show. It's not. I mean, I've been to shows. It's not a negative on the show. Now, if I was not at the shows and I only saw it on YouTube or something like that, and didn't have any crowd reaction, didn't hear crowd reaction, didn't know anything, and just saw it like that, I would go, "This is fucking stupid, and they should never do this." And that was my initial reaction for the first minute I saw it. But when I saw the reaction it got, I thought, you know what? For him, it's good. And, he made himself a name in a tough business to make yourself a name in when you don't have television. So that's fine. But I wasn't like sold on it. But then when I started seeing it at the shows, it's like, okay, for whatever reason this works, and I'm not gonna pretend it doesn't. It does, and so there it goes. It's there. If you book the guy, he's got to do the spot. You're going to leave your audience unhappy. That's the reality.
Not everybody can play for the Celtics, and just because one guy shoots pretty well doesn't mean they ought to let him double dribble to catch up with the rest of the team.
I know what you're saying.
All right.
This is underground wrestling. Look, he's better than on an underground show. He's better than most. I mean, he's not. Problem. I mean, well, it depends on the show. On PWG, I won't say he's better than most, but on All Pro Wrestling, he's better than most.
should there be this underground fucking wrestling if this is what they're going to do with it and make those of us who still
if it works and people are entertained by it,
crowds.
If it works and people are entertained by it, yes, it's natural selection. If it doesn't work, no. But it works right now. I mean, I think that it's really good for the wrestling business that this stuff is starting to gain in popularity because now there's an alternative. And I mean, there's opportunities for guys, and guys can actually make, I know guys, and plenty of them, not plenty of them, but a dozen, who can go to WWE tomorrow, or at least the next time there's whatever, could go to WWE, could certainly get like, a contract with WWE, and it's like, we're having more fun. We're on our own schedule. I mean, they're true independent contractors. It's like they're the new Bruiser Brodies of the world. We do whatever we want. We go to Japan. We, if we want to take a weekend off, we take a weekend off. If it's my kid's birthday, and
I love that whole concept.
And I think that's wonderful for the business. I don't like the idea that like one company can control the business, because then it's really tough for it's tough for a lot of things. And plus, when you have a company that's got a very narrow mind on what works, I mean, it was what's happened on the underground that has opened their eyes to what works for them too, because they'd be stuck with all the big muscle heads that don't know how to wrestle, except that these guys came in and outworked those guys, and now they're the top guys for them. All the guys that they shunned 5, 6, 7 years ago they wouldn't even touch are now in their main events.
I have always been in favor of the guys who want to be pro wrestlers and who actually go out and learn at their own expense or start out and fucking travel around for no money or whatever. I've always wanted them to get the nod over guys who they hired for appearance. But if those guys are going to, once again, if they're going to treat the business seriously, like the Revival and Scott Dawson, who was working for 10 years as nobody.
I love the Revival. They're actually one of my favorite tag teams.
But he was working for 10 years.
I'm not supposed to say that because I'm supposed to hate him because they're.
Anyway, he was working for.
I think those guys are great.
He was working for 10 years almost for nothing as nobody really until he finally got the break because of his talent, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't do invisible hand grenades. I'm just saying, I want the guys to have exactly the lifestyle that you just talked about. If they take their business seriously and respect it and don't shit on it for everybody else in it, then I'm always in favor of the guys. And for the guys who do stupid, obnoxiously phony, fucking silly things or want to be video game characters or whatever the fuck these guys' motivation is these days. I can't validate that by saying they should be allowed to be a part of our business is all I'm saying.
Well, here's the problem.
I don't think they should be rewarded for their bad behavior. They should be scolded sternly.
Okay, every single wrestler in their 20s that's grown up has watched, for the most part, WWE, which has never taken the business seriously, which has slapped you in the face. So based on what they didn't learn from watching Johnny Valentine like, you and I did, you know what I'm saying? In the sense of or Jack Briscoe. I mean, it was Dory Jr. or whatever. It's like they learned a different thing, and what they learned, they're a product of what they learned. And they were taught. I
was the last person to find people for not kayfabing then in OVW. I guess I was.
Well, yeah. Well, but I mean, it's like that's just what it is. And there's good and there's bad to it. There's good in the sense that it's a steady business, and there's a lot of there's a lot of people who will spend incredible amounts of money to be fans of wrestling like we've never seen before. So that's a positive. The negative is that the casual wrestling fan that I remember, they don't really exist right now. They're watching the NBA and they're watching the NFL, and they're not watching wrestling because nothing is important enough in wrestling. It's like, just as an example, it's like, when we were kids, it's the world championship.
Everything's an example. Nothing is important. Nobody cares who the world champion is.
Well, what's funny? What's funny is actually this year, the one championship, which I've seen people get freaking emotional about to the point it's almost funny, is the IWGP title because of the way they book it. In the sense of it's a freaking sports thing. And I mean, I know that when that second Omega Okada match came in, nobody knew what was going to be the finish, and everybody was speculating they were going to do a 60-minute draw, or this guy's going to win or this guy's going to win. And it really did get it got an interest level in a way that WWE really can't get, because they know that the championships are hand-me-down. And I mean, it's like you deserve like if you work for 4 years, you deserve a world title because you worked for 4 years. I worked hard for 4 years. I deserve the world title. In Japan, it's like for you to get that IWGP title. I know people go like this is an example, and there's a guy there, Hiroki Goto, very good wrestler. Okay, if he solid, always upper mid-card guy, been around forever, when he's in a big match, usually delivers. And whenever he goes for the IWGP title, he always loses. And I know people, and they go like, it's so unfair. He keeps going for the title, and he always loses. And it's like, you know what? That's what makes the title. Because Hiroki Goto can't get it. You can't just get it. I mean, it's not a championship because you're good, you deserve it. It's like the only guys who get it are frickin' Tanahashi, who's an all-time great, Okada, who's an all-time great, AJ Styles, who's going to be an all-time great. There might be some guys who aren't going to be all-time greats that may get it down the line, but not. Those are the only guys who've had it. And Naito, who's the top merchandise seller in the company, those are the only guys who've had it over the last whatever it's been 5 years. Nakamura didn't even get it the last couple of years he was there. I mean, so it's like when you treat your championship like that and you change it maybe once or twice a year, it is a big deal. But when you do but that's one of the things. I think that's one of the reasons why their business has come back so strong, is because they built a world championship that means something because of the way they booked it, as compared to here, where you can't take it seriously because everybody gets it because you get your turn, and everyone should have a championship, because how can you have a match where there's not a championship? And you know what I mean? It's just become.
So basically, what you're saying is, the more they try to be serious and make people believe it, the better it gets over.
Well, and at the major, don't you think at the major league level, I think that you need entertainment to it, of course, but at the major league level, the stronger you make your main events, the stronger you make your main eventers, and the stronger you make your main event scene, the better your business is. I think that's kind of like a given since 1900. I would never argue that. On the small level, you can't make people believe anything at that level. That's just a night of entertainment, and they know it. And you just gotta, again, you just got to figure out ways to make them keep coming back, and the people go home and have enough fun that they want to come back. Intermittently, however often you run it, and that's what that business, the independent business is different. You don't have TV, you don't have superstars that look like they're on television, that are big stars that, you're dealing with a small audience.
Too high in expectations is what you're saying. I'm holding these people to too much of a standard. You're holding small indies to a standard that the top promotions should have, and the top promotions don't have it either for the most part. I mean, even New Japan does. And look, New Japan does plenty of comedy stuff on their undercard too, but they don't do it in their main events. And I think that's a key part of it too.
Hey, Dave.
Go ahead, Brian.
I want to ask you, something like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which, very much akin to an ECW or even some events at Carrican Hall. It's about the room, despite DVD sales. It's all about the room. What do you think is super indie like that? What do you think the positives are, and what do you think the negatives are?
Everyone in the room tells me it's the room, and I've only seen them in the room, so I don't know. I mean, they've gone other places, but not for years. I know that they're probably, just because they've outgrown the room 10 times over, and they're leaving so much money on the table. I mean, when you're selling out in 4 minutes every single show on the internet with no advertising, you're not scratching the surface of your potential. And when every Thursday, because the tickets went on sale last Thursday, they went on sale at 8:00 my time on Thursday, and then at 10 after 8, you start getting emails from friends going like, "Well, I didn't get tickets. Did you get tickets?" You know what I mean? It's like, so that's a decision that they've made. But I mean, as far as like, it's the weird thing about PWG to me is that, and I have friends who do indies here, and I always say like everything that I would tell you not to do, they do, but it works for them. It's like, because I would say like, when you're doing an indie show, end the show at a decent hour. People don't want to be there till 11:30 at night, and then the poor main eventers are going on after a 3 hour and 15-minute show, and everyone's tired. like that. The PWG, that doesn't count. I mean, I've seen main events go on at 12:15 and then go 30 minutes, and the crowd's with them the whole time after everyone's torn down the house on the undercard. It's all this stuff I'm going like, this shouldn't work, but it does. So it's a unique thing. I mean, it's great for what it is. I feel like you're going to the baseball all-star game, every time you go there. And, so I mean, I don't know, just really enjoy the show. I can't really come up with negatives to it because they serve their audience so well. I mean, but the nature of, unfortunately, like one of the things is like they have some show-to-show booking, but not a lot. It's usually self-contained shows, even though they run every couple of months. And it's like you would want more booking from show to show where you shoot an angle here for the next one. And it's not that they don't do it. They do it, but I would want to see more. But the negative is because of the nature of so many of the guys are going to be in Japan on this day. It's kind of like who is available. Some of the guys are going to be with other promotions. They may have whatever it is. It's like you never know who you're going to get until the lineup is announced because it's who is available and who didn't take a booking somewhere else first. So it's like it's the booking that I like, which isn't there to that degree, is hampered because you just don't know who's going to be there and what. And that's just the nature of indie wrestling. You can if you're using stars, and it's good. The stars of indie wrestling, the Cody Rhodes and the people, if he's going to still be doing this for a long time, and I don't know what's going to happen with him later, but I mean, he's been doing it for the last several months, going everywhere that'll have him and getting more, probably turning down as many dates as he's getting because he's in such demand. But those kind of guys, just a Matt Riddle's probably like the young guy that's coming up, who's a true independent guy but he's got a contract with WWN. So he does have a first priority. But a guy like that, it's like you don't know if you're going to get him or not on a show, and you can't really do angles with him. So that's a negative of it. But the positive is that those guys who book the shows, they are so ahead of the curve on the guys because they're studying all the tapes. And if a guy is really good on a small promotion, it's like Leo Rush, although he, I guess Leo Rush had more of a name than they brought him, but Mike Bailey's probably a better name. The one that I had heard barely of and saw, and he's extremely talented. And since then, I mean, he probably would be doing really, really well, except he's banned from the United States, unfortunately. So he's going to have, so he's limited.
He couldn't have been real good then if he stunk that bad.
He got banned coming through customs, and now he can't come to the country for 5 years. So now he's just got to work Japan and Europe and Canada. But I mean, but the thing is it is a place to go where to make a name. I know that like a lot of the UK guys came there first. Pete Dunne was, I saw there before he quote before WWE signed him, and he's fantastic. And Mark Andrews, who certainly didn't go there first, was a freaking eye opener because it was. I watched this guy week in and week out in TNA, and it was like, and I knew he had talent. Don't get me wrong, I knew from TNA he had talent, but I never knew how freaking great this guy was because, they don't do a great job of showcasing talent. Then I saw him in PWG, and it's like, God damn, this guy is great. This guy's like the most underrated guy in the entire business when I saw him. And now he's getting credit for it, and WWE signed him, and hopefully he'll be able to have good matches because if you watch that. Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne match. I mean, he's as good as both of them. I mean, he's I don't say he's on the level of those guys and have the exact same match that those guys had. A different form of it because his strengths are very different from theirs, but a different form of that kind of match. And that match, tore down the house at that last takeover show when by all logic it shouldn't have, given that they had never even appeared for that, promotion before and they weren't on TV. But, and that's another example. It's like you couldn't have NXT the way it is now without this current fan base because it wouldn't play. But they've managed to embrace that scene. I mean, which is the irony is that the matches that they say and teach the guys not to do are the matches that are getting over the best for the most part on that level, which is just hilarious to me.
Well, and I liked Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne.
Awesome.
Watched that match, and it's kind of a souped up combination of some World of Sport style and but modern and New Japanese and etc.
I gotta say this real quick. Those two guys do a ton of stuff in Europe on some shows that you would hate. Like like playing each. Like I think they did a match where they played each other and pretended to be the other guy and stuff like that.
Well, wait a minute. Who do you? Don't tell me and ruin. I finally find some guys I'm saying nice things about you.
But they're awesome, and I don't hold it against them or anything like that because it's just like they're testing the boundaries, and some shit works and some stuff doesn't. Some stuff works that I wouldn't want to see, but it works.
Boundaries. I don't want those boundaries to be tested. But anyway, no, I like Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, and I wish when they get older, hopefully they just look a little rougher. Tyler Bate.
Well, that'll happen. Looks like Drew McIntyre the perfect example of that? I watch clips of Drew McIntyre, and when he first broke into WWE, and he's got this baby-faced 20-year-old guy, and now that he's 30, I mean, this guy to me. Yeah. I look at him and go, why is this guy not in main events on the top level? And Baron Corbin is. It's like, it blows my mind. Because
Galloway, I saw him in Florida, and I said, wow, he stood out like a fucking
what does he not have? He can talk. He's got the look. He can work babyface. He can work heel. It's like, I'm looking at him going like, he punches every button, and he's down there in developmental. And, and they screwed him up the first time they had him. But it's like he's ready right now to go in on the main roster and be whether I would bring him in as a heel and eventually he'd be a super baby face, but at first I'd bring him in as a heel and have a great run as a heel. And I mean, it's like to me, he's easy.
I just figured he had heat with somebody. He did.
But it's like hopefully you grow past that. I mean, everyone does stuff.
But now wait a minute. He didn't wrestle any grade school children, did he? Maybe that's what it's all about.
No, I don't know. He got married to the wrong person for the first time, I think.
Oh, well, that'll do it. We're going to stop busting your balls about the grade school kids and the video game wrestlers.